Hey, what's up, everyone? Gaming Hearts One here, and today I'm gonna talk briefly about Soul Calibur, and I guess what many people think might possibly be the best installment within the entire series. The Soul series has been around since 1995, I believe, and there have been a variety of installments that we have seen since the mid 90s that a lot of people have been impressed by. A lot of people go on record and say the Soul Calibur game from '98 was a classic along with the Soul Calibur 2 game from '02. The Soul Calibur 3 game from 2005 is considered to be underrated by a lot of people because I believe that appeared on PlayStation 2. And there was a lot of offline, content and game modes and stuff like that to keep people preoccupied because online gaming really didn't start to pick up until like the late 2000s going into the early teens. And I believe Soul Calibur 4 came out back in 2008, and that was a game that a lot of people were quite fond of. And you had I guess hidden Star Wars characters like Darth Vader and Yoda appear in that game as well, and it was something that I think gave Soul Calibur 4 a little bit more mainstream exposure, seeing how popular Star Wars was and still is to this day. Soul Calibur 5 came out back in 2012, and that game had a lot of potential, and I do feel that the storyline for Soul Calibur 5 felt a bit rushed, and I remember a lot of people giving Soul Calibur 5 a hard time when the game was first released because it fell below their expectations. Also, when you played Soul Calibur 5, I think like in the traditional arcade mode and you beat the game or what have you, there was really no ending. It was just congratulations, you beat the game or what have you. And that was a game that did have online multiplayer gameplay. It also had an offline single player game mode where you fought numerous customizable characters that was computer generated, and you basically use that to boost your character's stats and level them up. And that was something that was a pretty fun and unique feature in Soul Calibur 5. But again, I do feel that that game was one that doesn't get enough credit, especially like the storytelling aspect of it. I feel like it could have been better, and I do feel that it was like one of the first like Soul Calibur games to pretty much, I guess, like tell a story that focused on like brand new characters. Like, cause I remember Pyrrha and Patroclus were the main two characters of Soul Calibur 5, and even though Sylphita was mentioned in like the game, she was not a playable character, and I think that was something that hurt Soul Calibur 5 in terms of popularity because Sylphita was one of the most popular characters in the entire series, and her not being in the game was kind of a problem. And then you look at Soul Calibur 6, which came out back in 2018, and that was pretty much like a reboot of the series. It revisited the events of the first two Soul Calibur games, and I do feel that that game was very popular because it managed to reach like 2 million in sales, and if I'm not mistaken, that's probably like the best selling installment in the series. I could be wrong, but then I heard that Soul Calibur 2 made like at least $32 million in revenue when it was released. So like Soul Calibur 2 was also special as well, and then you also saw special characters appear in that game as well, because I believe if you got the GameCube version of Soul Calibur 2, Link was a playable character if you unlocked him, and that was something that was pretty cool. And I do feel that Soul Calibur 6 could have had some like special hidden characters that were not from the Soul series that could have brought more eyes to the game itself. But it is what it is because Soul Calibur 6 was a massive success anyways. But in terms of which game was more popular really depends on what you're looking for in a game, because like Soul Calibur 6 had just about everything. It had thorough storytelling, it had like awesome gameplay mechanics, it had a star-studded roster, and Soul Calibur 6 in general was just I feel it was a game that was overshadowed because there was a lot of blockbuster titles that came out in 2018, especially as it related to the fighting genre. Like I think Dragon Ball Fighters was definitely a game that overshadowed Soul Calibur 6 because like Fighters was something that kind of just came out of left field. No one knew how good that game was going to be, but it ended up being better than Marvel vs. Capcom 3, depending on who you ask. And Soul Calibur 6, I think the reason why it did so well in terms of commercial success was mainly because the game itself was one that a lot of people didn't think they were going to get after Soul Calibur 5, because you look at the ending of Soul Calibur 5 and the main story, it looked like that was going to be the end of the series. So when we got Soul Calibur 6, we were surprised, and honestly, it didn't fail us. It didn't fail our expectations or anything like that. So I do think that Soul Calibur 6, like overall as a fighting game within its own series, is arguably the best installment in the entire series. Other people go on record and say it's Soul Calibur 2 from '02 or Soul Calibur 1 from 1998, but I do feel that the Soul series is one that deserves more credit than it gets. But then again, it has to compete with the likes of Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter and pretty much, I guess, anything that Bandai Namco or Capcom or NetherRealm Studios produces that would pose as a competitive threat to the Soul series in general.